Bridget Louise Riley CHCBE is an English painter who is one of the foremost exponents of op art. She currently lives and works in London, Cornwall and the Vaucluse in France. Early life and education. Riley was born in London in 1931. Her father, John Fisher Riley, originally from Yorkshire, was a printer, as his own father had been. In 1938 he relocated the printing business, together with his family, to Lincolnshire. During World War II, Riley's father was drafted into the army and she was evacuated, with her mother and sister, to a cottage in Cornwall. The cottage, not far from the sea near Padstow, was shared with an aunt who was a former student at Goldsmiths College, London. Primary education came in the form of irregular talks and lectures by non-qualified or retired teachers. She attended Cheltenham Ladies' College and then studied art at Goldsmiths College, and later at the Royal College of Art. There her fellow students included artists Peter Blake, Geoffrey Harcourt and Frank Auerbach. In 1955 Riley graduated with a BA degree. Between 1956 and 1958 she nursed her father, who had been involved in a serious car crash, and herself suffered a breakdown. After this she worked in a glassware shop and also, for a while, taught children. She eventually joined the J. Walter Thompson advertising agency, as an illustrator, where she worked part-time until 1962. The large Whitechapel Gallery exhibition of Jackson Pollock, in the winter of 1958, was to have a major impact on her. Her early work was figurative with a semi-impressionist style. Between 1958 and 1959 her work at the advertising agency showed her adoption of a style of painting based on the pointillist technique. Around 1960 she began to develop her signature op art style consisting of black and white geometric patterns that explore the dynamism of sight and produce a disorienting effect on the eye. In the summer of 1960 she toured Italy with mentor Maurice de Saumarez, and the two visited the Venice Biennale with its large exhibition of futurist works. Early in her career, Riley worked as an art teacher from 1957–58 at the Convent of the Sacred Heart, Harrow. Later she worked at the Loughborough School of Art, Hornsey College of Art, and Croydon College of Art. In 1961, with partner Peter Sedgley, she visited the Vaucluse Plateau in the south of France, and acquired a derelict farm which would eventually be transformed into a studio. Back in London, in the spring of 1962, Riley was given her first solo exhibition, by Victor Musgrave of Studio One. In 1968 Riley, with Peter Sedgley and the journalist Peter Townsend, created the artists' organisation, Space, with the goal of providing artists large and affordable studio space. Work. Riley's mature style, developed during the 1960s, was influenced by a number of sources. It was during this time that Riley began to paint the black and white works for which she is best known. They present a great variety of geometric forms that produce sensations of movement or color. In the early 1960s, her works were said to induce sensation in viewers as varied as seasick and skydiving. From 1961 to 1964 she worked with the contrast of black and white, occasionally introducing tonal scales of grey. Works in this style comprised her first 1962 solo show at Musgrave's Gallery 1, as well as numerous subsequent shows. For example, in Fall, a single perpendicular's curve is repeated to create a field of varying optical frequencies. Visually, these works relate to many concerns of the period: a perceived need for audience participation, challenges to the notion of the mind-body duality which led Aldous Huxley to experiment with hallucinogenic drugs, concerns with the tension between a scientific future, which might be very beneficial or might lead to a nuclear war, and fears about the loss of genuine individual experience in a brave, new world. Her paintings have, since 1961, been executed by assistants from her own endlessly edited studies. Riley began investigating color in 1967, the year in which she produced her first stripe painting. Following a major retrospective in the early 1970s, Riley began traveling extensively. After a trip to Egypt in the early 1980s, where she was inspired by colorful hieroglyphic decoration, Riley began to explore color and contrast. In some works, lines of color are used to create a shimmering effect, while in others the canvas is filled with tessellating patterns. Typical of these later colorful works is shadow play. In many works since this period, Riley has employed others to paint the pieces. While she concentrates on the actual design of her work, some are titled after particular dates, others after specific locations. Following a visit to Egypt in 1980-81, Riley created colors in what she called her Egyptian palette, and produced works such as the Ka and Ra series, which capture the spirit of the country, ancient and modern, and reflect the colors of the Egyptian landscape, invoking the sensorial memory of her travels. The paintings produced between 1980 and 1985 exhibit Riley's free reconstruction of the restricted chromatic palette discovered abroad. In 1983, for the first time in 15 years, Riley returned to Venice to once again study the paintings that form the basis of European colorism. Towards the end of the 1980s, Riley's work underwent a dramatic change with the reintroduction of the diagonal in the form of a sequence of parallelograms used to disrupt and animate the vertical stripes that had characterized her previous paintings. In Delos, for example, blue, turquoise, and emerald hues alternate with rich yellows, reds and white. Murals. Over the course of her career, Riley has created murals for major art institutions, including the Tate, the Musée d'Art Moderne de la Ville de Paris and the National Gallery, but none were permanent. In 2014, the Imperial College Healthcare Charity Art Collection commissioned the artist to make a permanent 56-meter mural, her first for 27 years. For St Mary's Hospital, London, the work was installed on the 10th floor of the hospital's Queen Elizabeth Queen Mother wing, joining two others for the 8th and 9th floors completed by Riley more than 20 years earlier. On the nature and role of the artist, Riley made the following comments regarding artistic work in her lecture Painting Now, 23rd William Townsend Memorial Lecture, Slade School of Fine Art, London, the 26th of November 1996. Beckett interprets Proust as being convinced that such a text cannot be created or invented but can only be discovered within the artist himself, and that it is, as it were, almost a law of his own nature. It is his most precious possession, and, as Proust explains, the source of his innermost happiness. However, as can be seen from the practice of the great artists, although the text may be strong and durable, and able to support a lifetime's work, it cannot be taken for granted and there is no guarantee of permanent possession. It may be mislaid or even lost, and retrieval is very difficult. It may lie dormant, and be discovered late in life after a long struggle, as with Mondrian or Proust himself. Why it should be that some people have this sort of text while others do not, and what meaning it has, is not something which lends itself to argument, nor is it up to the artist to decide how important it is, or what value it has for other people. To ascertain this is perhaps beyond even the capacities of an artist's own time. Writer and curator Riley has written on artists from Nicolas Poussin to Bruce Nauman. She co-curated Piet Mondrian, From Nature to Abstraction, at the Tate Gallery in 1996. Alongside art historian Robert Kudielka, Riley also served as curator of the 2002 exhibition, Paul Klee, The Nature of Creation, an exhibition at the Hayward Gallery in London. In 2010, she curated an Artist's Choice show at the National Gallery in London, choosing large figure paintings by Titian, Veronese, El Greco, Rubens, Poussin, and Paul Cézanne. Exhibitions. In 1965, Riley exhibited in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City show The Responsive Eye, the exhibition which first drew worldwide attention to her work and the op art movement. Her painting Current, 1964, was reproduced on the cover of the show's catalogue. Riley became increasingly disillusioned, however, with the exploitation of her art for commercial purposes. Discovering that in the USA there was no copyright protection for artists, the first U.S. copyright legislation was eventually passed, following an independent initiative by New York artists, in 1967. She participated in Documentis IV and Vi. In 1968, Riley represented Great Britain in the Venice Biennale, where she was the first British contemporary painter, and the first woman to be awarded the International Prize for Painting. Her disciplined work lost ground to the assertive gestures of the neo-expressionists in the 1980s. But a 1999 show at the Serpentine Gallery of her early paintings triggered a resurgence of interest in her optical experiments. Bridget Riley. Reconnaissance, an exhibition of paintings from the 1960s and 1970s, was presented at Deer, Chelsea in 2000. In 2001, she participated in Sight Santa Fe, and in 2003 the Tate Britain organized a major Riley retrospective. In 2005 her work was featured at Gallery Oldham. Between November 2010 and May 2011, her exhibition, Paintings and Related Work, was presented at the National Gallery, London. In June and July 2014 the retrospective show, Bridget Riley, The Stripe Paintings 1961–2014, was presented at the David's Winner Gallery in London. In July and August 2015 the retrospective show, Bridget Riley, The Curve Paintings 1961–2014, was presented at the De La Warr Pavilion in Bexhill-on-Sea. From September 2015 to January 2016, the Courtauld Gallery presented Bridget Riley, Learning from Seurat, in London, illustrating how Georges Seurat's pointillist work The Bridge at Courbevoie influenced her towards abstract painting. In November 2015, the exhibition Bridget Riley opened at David's Winner in New York. The show features paintings and works on paper by the artist from 1981 to present. The fully illustrated catalogue features an essay by the art historian Richard Schiff and biographical notes compiled by Robert Kudielka. Public collections: Museum Boijmans van Beuningen, Rotterdam; Museum of Fine Arts, Boston; Museum of Modern Art, New York; Nelson Atkins Museum of Art, Kansas City. Artists who have acknowledged Riley's influence on their work include Ross Bleckner, Philip Taft, and Diana Datta. In 2013, Riley claimed that a wall-sized, black-and-white checkerboard work by Tobias Rehberger plagiarized her painting Movement of Squares and asked for it to be removed from display at the Berlin State Library's Reading Room. Recognition: Riley has been given honorary doctorates by Oxford and Cambridge. In 2003, she was awarded the Premium Imperial, and in 1998 she became one of only 65 Companions of Honour in Britain. As a board member of the National Gallery in the 1980s, she blocked Margaret Thatcher's plan to give an adjoining piece of property over to developers and thus helped ensure the eventual construction of the museum's Sainsbury wing. Riley has also received the International Prize for Painting at the 1968 Venice Biennale, the Kaisering of the City of Goslar in 2009 and the 12th Rubens Prize of Siegen in 2012. Also in 2012, she became the first woman to receive the Sickens Prize, the Dutch art prize recognizing the use of color. Art market. In 2006, her Untitled, a black-and-white canvas of dizzying curves, was bought by Jeffrey Deitch at Sotheby's for $2.1 million. Nearly 3 times its $730,000 high estimate and also a record for the artist. In February 2008, the artist's dotted canvas Static 2 brought £1,476,500, far exceeding its £900,000 high estimate, at Christie's in London. Chant 2, part of the trio shown in the Venice Biennale, went to a private American collector for £2,561,250 in July 2008, at Sotheby's. Riley is represented in London by Carsten Schubert, who has been her main agent since 1990, as well as by David Swinner in London and New York, Max Hetzler in Berlin, and Green on Red Gallery in Dublin. Bibliography. Bridget Riley. The Stripe Paintings 1961 to 2014. Texts by Robert Kudielka, Paul Morehouse, and Richard Schiff. ISBN 9780989980975. Bridget Riley. The Stripe Paintings 1961 to 2012. Texts by John Elderfield, Robert Kudielka, and Paul Morehouse. Bridget Riley. Works 1960 to 1966. Bridget Riley in conversation with David Sylvester and with Maurice de Saumarez. Bridget Riley. Complete Prints 1962 to 2012. Essays by Lynn McRitchie and Craig Hartley, edited by Carsten Schubert. The Eye's Mind. Bridget Riley. Collected Writings 1965 to 1999. Includes conversations with Alex Farquharson, Mel Gooding, Vanya Cooley, Robert Kudielka, and David Thompson. Edited by Robert Kudielka. Bridget Riley. Paintings from the 60s and 70s. With texts by Lisa Corrin, Robert Kudielka, and Francis Spaulding. Bridget Riley. Selected Paintings 1961 to 1999, with texts by Michael Krajewski, Robert Kudielka, Bridget Riley, Raymond Stecker, and conversations with Ernst H. Gombrich and Michael Craig Martin. Bridget Riley. Works 1961 to 1998. A conversation with Isabel Carlyle. Bridget Riley. Dialogues on Art. Conversations with Michael Craig Martin, Andrew Graham Dixon, Ernst H. Gombrich, Neil McGregor, and Brian Robertson. Edited by Robert Kudielka and with an introduction by Richard Schon. Bridget Riley. Paintings and related work. Text by Colin Wiggins, Michael Bracewell, Marla Prother and Robert Kudielka. ISBN 9781857094978.